In this edition of Southern Newsweek, Invercargill Blokes get to tour a number of interesting sheds. Wigram Air Force Museum in Christchurch puts on an exhibition about Passchendaele, and a Port Chalmers dairy farm swings back into production. Welcome to Southern Newsweek, I'm Melissa Barton. Blokes, blokettes and mini blokes spent last Sunday poking around some of the best of Southland sheds. The South Today's Sharon Rees and her mini blokes joined this year's Invercargill Blokes and Sheds tour.
Dozens of people set out from Southland Boys High School yesterday for Invercargill's 17th annual Blokes and Sheds tour. The tour took in a selection of sheds used for a variety of businesses, collections and hobbies.
Sometimes it's the collection in the shed, sometimes it's the shed itself, sometimes it's the bloke who could be a real character. Or a combination of all three. They all have an interesting story to tell, whether it be their hobby, sometimes it's their profession, and a lot of them mix the two together, as you've just seen here.
Robbie Miller's Insignia Signs workshop was the first stop of the day, revealing a collection of cars, retro signs, gadgets and his personal artworks.
Oh, it's good to meet some interesting people, and yeah, obviously a lot of these people have got treasures of their own in their own sheds, so yeah, all like-minded people, I suppose.
Bowie says the tour provides an insight into the pastimes of Southlanders, with many having a Burt Munro feel.
We've seen boats being built, a lot of car restorations, every shed, and then you'll find something that's just a little bit quirky or a little bit different. Like the gentleman here who sign writes and things, but he paints fish and he paints fruit. So there's some real ingenuity out there, and what you saw about Burt Munro and the world's fastest Indian, that spirit is still alive and well in Southland sheds.
Lunch was provided by some Southland Boys mini blokes at the Invercargill men's shed, which Bowie says is in the process of becoming a permanent shed for like-minded people so they can bring their hobbies together. I'm Sharon Rees for the South Today.
100 years ago, one of the bloodiest battles on World War I was fought near a small village in Belgium known as Passchendaele. New Zealand's involvement in the campaign is recognised in an exhibition the Belgians have not forgotten, on display at Wigram Air Force Museum in Christchurch until the end of August.
The battles at Passchendaele were part of a wider campaign fought between July 31st and November 10th, 1917. They were among the bloodiest of World War I. With more than 320,000 dead and wounded on the Allied side alone, for a territorial gain of just 8 kilometres, before the battle finally ended. The exhibition Belgians Have Not Forgotten is currently on display at the Wigram Air Force Museum in Christchurch. The exhibition is the result of a long-standing relationship between the Waimakariri district and the Zonabeka district. It's been prepared by the Passchendaele Memorial Museum and curated by the Waimakariri Passchendaele Trust. The Waimakariri district will be represented at the commemorations in Belgium on October the 12th. Dignitaries travelling for the event include Waimakariri Mayor David Ayres, a large contingent from the Rangiora RSA, and Rangiora High School's head girl. Daryl Baser, The South Today.
A large Southland Dairy Corporation and two of its managers were fined nearly $60,000 in the Invercargill District Court on Tuesday on charges of neglecting their dairy cows on farms at Lumsden. The prosecution was brought by the Ministry of Primary Industries, and its Manager of Compliance Investigations, Gary Orr, spoke to Sharon Rees after the case.
It was described to the Invercargill District Court as the worst case of long-term neglect in the dairy sector in the South Island. 41-year-old Jared Matthews and 44-year-old Dean McMillan were looking after two large farms at Lumsden for Castlerock Dairies Limited. They and the company pleaded guilty to failing to maintain the lanes used by cows, causing them pain and suffering.
The animals were having to walk up to 3 hours every milking time, and they were being milked twice a day. And the lameness that was being caused by the fact they were walking through knee-deep mud and excrement was quite evident even to a layperson, and should never have been allowed to get to that level of pain and suffering that the animals were experiencing. It's unacceptable, quite frankly.
Castlerock Dairies was fined $37,500, while Matthews and McMillan were each fined $10,000 and sentenced to 275 hours community service.
There is finger pointing between the parties involved, and I don't think we'll ever know the real reason behind it. The key thing for us as MPI is to say, regardless of who was accountable or who was responsible, all parties that have responsibility for the welfare of the animals on those properties will be held to account.
A total of 193 cows had to be euthanised and 761 required vet treatment. Orr said 14 vets spent weeks on the property initially and were disturbed by the extent of animal welfare issues.
One of the most senior veterinarians there said it's the worst case that they've ever seen. My people described the state of the farm as catastrophic. The level of lameness was abhorrent to any reasoned person.
Orr advised anyone who had seen issues relating to production animal welfare to contact MPI immediately. I'm Sharon Rees for the South Today.
On to a happier story about animal husbandry. A Port Chalmers dairy farm is back up and running with its sales of fresh milk. This comes after being closed over a year ago when one cow tested positive for tuberculosis. Adrian has more.
It's been a long, emotional road for Port Chalmers farmer Merrill McNeil, who was forced to book his beloved heifers for the slaughterhouse 14 months ago after one tested positive for TB. On learning of the cow's plight, volunteers stepped in, supplying feed and helping set up an approved pasteurisation process.
They had a whole list of things they needed done, and I didn't have the money to do everything in a hurry, so it took a while, that's all. Because we depended on a lot of volunteer help, and things take time.
McNeil says the customers are starting to come back, and he is happy with the quality of the new milk he is producing.
I can taste a tiny bit of cooked flavour, but not much. Texture, I think, is very similar. Same nice creamy milk. It's not bad. Yeah, it's pretty good.
He said he was overjoyed to be back and felt privileged to be able to continue after all looked so lost just over a year ago. Adrian, the South Today.
Coming up after the break, the whitebait fishing season begins in the south, and an exhibition in Dunedin of one of New Zealand's most successful artists. The Gore indoor dog trials are bigger and better than last year. Welcome back. Tuesday was the beginning of whitebait fishing season for many in the south. The fine weather saw many people fishing at the Clutha River mouth. Adrian has more.
Vivian Maguire has been fishing for whitebait at this spot on the Clutha River for the last 24 years.
I usually start counting down the months about 5 months before it starts.
Last year there were very few whitebait to be caught.
Yeah, it was pretty atrocious, yeah. But still got enough for about 4 feeds and gave about 6 feeds away, and so it was still alright.
Monday's late high tide meant only a few small shoals of whitebait were travelling upstream into the nets of Kaitangata locals.
Even enough for a patty.
Closer to the river mouth, Alan Murdoch was waiting for the tide to turn before he dropped his net into the river. The Department of Conservation said that they hope those fishing for whitebait would be following the requirements under the law. Whitebaiting is prohibited at night, and DOC reminded people to report whitebaiters who are being non-compliant. They also hope whitebaiters will take part in a survey by filling out catchment diaries of hours spent fishing and amounts caught. The whitebait season continues until the 30th of November. However, the West Coast has a shorter season, starting the 1st of September and finishing up October the 14th. Adrian, the South Today.
Dunedin's SPCA complex in Opaho is getting a $1.5 million facelift. SPCA Otago Executive Officer Sophie McSkimming says the premises have been in urgent need of refurbishment following issues including a rat infestation. Roselle Labone has more.
Even the dogs seem excited about the new developments at Dunedin's SPCA, with the first stage of the new building just completed. I'm Roselle Labone. The SPCA building campaign here in Dunedin will focus on construction of a new building to house an education centre, laundry facility and 2 veterinary consultation rooms.
We've got a reception area down the bottom, a couple of consult rooms, veterinary consult rooms, a massive storage area because we have really struggled to store our food.
SPCA Otago Executive Officer Sophie McSkimming says the next stage, demolition of the dog quarantine area, is happening tomorrow.
We've got digger drivers coming tomorrow to demolish that. They said they're not going to get out of their diggers because they're scared of rats. So that building that we're demolishing tomorrow is, yeah, that's part of the rodent, it's a real rodent problem. So this is the first stage. This is the first stage of the building. So the tender has gone out for the second stage. It's been accepted. So Stevenson Williams, who are building the first stage, also starting on the second stage. And that stage, I say, the demolishing starts tomorrow.
The project means more wide open spaces and cleaner premises for the animals. The Otago SPCA Charitable Trust has committed $500,000 to the project, and a black tie dinner at the Savoy on May the 27th raised nearly $40,000. About $180,000 is needed to finish the three-stage project. However, McSkimming says emergency funding to make up the difference is available.
So we've had $500,000 our own trust has put into the building project, and then with various kind grants, we've got $150,000 from the Otago Community Trust. So we are up to about just over 1.3 million. Our trust has said that they will come and help us if we don't get that last $180,000.
It is hoped all three stages of construction will be complete by the end of the year. Roselle Lebone, The South Today.
A new exhibition at the Dunedin Public Art Gallery showcases the work of a relatively unknown New Zealand artist. The exhibition covers 20 years of the artist's output. Rudy Adrian has much, much more.
From small beginnings at art school in Christchurch over 20 years ago to solo shows in museums around the world, Frances Upperchard is now considered as one of New Zealand's most successful artists. Her work, which echoes the grotesques of Bosch and Brohel, is not well known in her home country. In fact, this Dunedin exhibition is the first full overview of Frances Upperchard's work ever displayed in New Zealand, with pieces on loan from collections around the world. Exhibition curator Charlotte Day is well aware of the lack of recognition Upperchard has received in New Zealand so far.
She's very well known internationally. She is pretty well known in New Zealand too, but she hasn't had a kind of major exhibition here before. So this show is an opportunity for us to bring a big body of work together, from some of her very earliest pieces to work that she's made very recently, and show the development of her practice over that time.
The exhibition, entitled Jealous Saboteurs, is on display at the Dunedin Public Art Gallery until end November. Rudy Adrian, The South Today.
When many people think of sheepdog trialling, it's of wide open paddocks, blazing sun and penning the woolly menaces. It's typically an outdoors affair. However, an indoor competition was recently held in Gore out of any stiff breezes, but still a stiff competition in the second annual Southern Indoor Charity Dog Trials.
Dog trialists went undercover for the South Island's only indoor dog trial this week at the Southern Field Days Cowhouse Construction Agri Centre in Waimumu. The second annual Southern Indoor Charity Dog Trials were held over 3 days, with 160 competitors from throughout the South Island going head to head and dog to dog. Steve Kerr of Fairley took out top honours with his dog Mac and a combined score of 98 points. He also received the third place spot with his dog Ben and a score of 96.5, while Barry Hobbs of Herbert was second. Steve Kerr was appreciative of the organisers.
It's a great trial and a great facility and done for a very worthy cause, so yep, thanks to the Southern fellas. Thanks very much.
All proceeds from the event will go to St John, with last year's trials raising $7,000 for the organisation. Southern Indoor Charity Dog Trials Chairman Mike Joyce says the competition has been excellent, with many volunteers working hard to make it run smoothly.
Been excellent. They've all had jobs, they've got in and done them, and thank you. It's a big job. 4 days, working close on 700 sheep, and I must thank them all for that.
The trials have been expanded to 3 days after the success of the inaugural event last year. with organisers spending 10 days preparing for the competition. The sheep used for the trials had been worked for 4 days in the lead-up and had run well. Mike Joyce says the standard of competition has been higher than last year, and the scores reflected the strength of man and dog. Daryl Baser, The South Today.
Coming up after the break, over 1,700 homes in Dunedin were advised not to drink tap water, a light plane crashes in Queenstown, Welcome back. The possibility of drinking untreated water became a reality for many in Dunedin. Raw water released from the Ross Creek Reservoir on Sunday entered the city's drinking water network. The raw water came from a protected catchment, and council officials said it was the same as drinking straight out of a stream or lake.
We're pretty confident in the water that...
The Dunedin City Council called a media conference this afternoon to explain how untreated raw water got into the city's supply system and what was being done about it. I'm Rosella Bone. Dunedin City Council's Emergency Operations Centre is in full swing at the moment as it rushes to flush out contaminated water from Dunedin's water supply, an operation it says should be concluded by this afternoon. Dunedin City Council's Sandy Graham says the centre is monitoring the situation and water pipes are now clear.
People need to drain their pipes, that 20 to 30 minutes they need to run their taps, but the boil water notice will still be in place for 3 days, and so the people need to be mindful of that.
The contamination occurred through water accidentally being taken from the wrong pipe while the council was attempting to lower the Ross Creek Reservoir.
The staff up there, good staff, they opened a valve that they knew led to venting of the Ross Creek Reservoir into the stream, so that we could slowly over time begin to reduce the level of water in the reservoir. Unfortunately, it turned out that that valve vented water from the reservoir into some pipe work that all of our paperwork insists was shut down, disestablished 30 years ago, and actually led it into the city water supply.
This map shows the area in the central city to North Dunedin which is affected. Water tankers arranged by the council to supply fresh drinking water were dispatched around the city. Bottled water from supermarkets is in big demand and a 2-bottle limit had to be imposed.
I've bought 8 litres at the supermarket and I bought 2 drink bottles at the library earlier.
The first complaints about murky tap water were made to the council on Monday evening. Despite not responding to initial complaints until this morning, the City Council says it is satisfied the council has handled processes correctly, but processes will be reviewed. It is not yet completely clear what is in the water. Anyone who suspects they may have drunk contaminated water should head to the hospital as soon as they experience symptoms.
The hospital are geared up if people turn up, so I think if people have vomiting and diarrhoea, it's very wise to go to your doctor. Present, don't just sit at home and feel crook.
Dunedin Hospital is presently using water from tankers provided by the council. Roselle Lebone, The South Today.
The New Zealand Civil Aviation Authority has begun an investigation into the crash of a light plane at Queenstown Airport this morning. Senior Media Advisor for the authority, Philippa Lagan, said in the statement this afternoon the plane seemed to have experienced engine failure as it took off. The crash disrupted 10 commercial flights. Mina Amso filmed the wreckage.
The damaged Cessna 177B plane was carried off the Queenstown Airport runway late this morning and is now in the hands of investigators for the Civil Aviation Authority. 4 passengers were on board the plane when it took off at Queenstown Airport at 8:50 a.m. In a statement, Senior Media Advisor for the authority, Philippa Lagan, said it appeared that after taking off, the aircraft experienced engine failure. A pilot and 3 passengers were on board. The front seat passenger suffered an ankle injury and was taken to the hospital. Others were uninjured. 10 commercial flights were disrupted as emergency services attended the scene of the crash. Queenstown Airport Corporation CEO Colin Keel says it took 2 hours before flights resumed operation.
So some flights were diverted and other aircraft never left their original origin.
The wrecked plane is being stored at Queenstown Airport while investigations continue. Mina Amso, The South Today.
Former South Island Farmer of the Year Doug Avery was in Invercargill this week to launch his book about his struggles as a farmer. The Resilient Farmer is Avery's emotional account of battling depression. Sharon Rees has more.
When we look to the future creates the present.
Doug Avery took centre stage at a packed Makarewa Country Club on Monday night for the launch of his book, The Resilient Farmer. Avery says the book focuses on the depression he suffered after a drought destroyed his farm in the 90s and on how he developed mental resilience.
That's what I want to do on this book tour, is talk to people about building their top paddock so that it can be resilient in the face of the dynamic future that we face.
Avery says writing the book has given him a new purpose and is already helping people from all over.
That book is spreading across Australia, New Zealand. I am getting rings from people saying, oh my God, thank you, Doug, for writing this book. Do you know what that does for me? Gives me value, makes me feel good. I don't ever want to feel sad again in my life. I know stuff will happen that it makes me feel sad. I want to add value to this world.
Emerging from depression wasn't an easy thing to do, and Avery says to build resilience, he has to work on it every day.
Resilience isn't something that you get up on Monday morning and you can just think, right, I'm going to put myself through a resilience course this week, and by 5 o'clock on Friday I'm going to be bulletproof. Resilience is a state of mind, and it's about constantly working on it.
He says the idea is to talk more openly about the issues people are facing in order to help them survive depression.
We need to be a lot more encouraging people to keep investing in their own personal growth. You'll never ever see this man neglecting his own education and continuous learning process ever again.
The Resilient Farmer Tour continues to Gore and Winton today and tomorrow before making its way north. I'm Sharon Rees for The South Today.
Tuesday saw a huge Kapa Haka festival being held for schools in North Otago. Over 800 pupils from 16 area schools performed on stage. Rudy Adrian has more.
Oamaru's Opera House was filled with school pupils of all ages, putting on their best Kapa Haka performances for the North Otago Kaupapa Maori Festival. Amongst the acts were pupils from St Joseph's School. The event is held every 2 years and includes pupils from kindergarten all the way to secondary school. Pembroke School pupils also put on a performance. The next North Otago Kaupapa Maori Festival is scheduled for 2019. Rudy Adrian, The South Today.
And that's it for Southern Newsweek this week. Get online and check us out on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, and you can keep up with the Southern News via our website channel39.co.nz. I'm Melissa Barton and thanks for watching.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.